outside, but I didn't hear him. Huh. No. What the? Not sure that's how physics works, game. Hey, what's up guys, it's Sirian here, and I'm bringing you some Modern Warfare beta gameplay. I just want to quickly say that I didn't actually get a lot of time to play the beta because I am currently in the process of moving house. So that took up a little bit of time and I wasn't able to play the beta as much as I would have liked, which is a bit unfortunate, but what can you do? The timing of these things happen. I guess the timing could have been worse. It could have been the full release was happening. So yeah, as a consequence, I didn't get to play out with a ton of stuff during the beta. I did use I tried to use a fair few weapons, as many as I could, really, but I only got to play it for like a couple of sessions, so... Anyway, with that out of the way, I just wanted to say I wasn't hugely impressed by my experience during the beta. I didn't have a whole lot of fun with this game. I'm sorry to report that. I wish as much as anyone, probably more than anyone, that the beta had really grabbed me and that I thought it was the most amazing game ever made. But I'm really hoping that the full release will be better, and on that note is what we're going to be talking about in this video, which will be the things I think should really be improved come full release. So I saw, actually, it was a Drifter video of all things that got recommended to me, and it was the top 10 things that he had, that he wanted fixed on full release, or wanted changed, or whatever you want to call it. And I thought, you know what, Drifty, that's a mighty fine idea for a video, and I think it'll be therapeutic for me to sort of list the things I really didn't like about the beta either. So yeah, thanks for the idea, Drifter. I appreciate that one. Anyway, so with that being said, I didn't enjoy the beta that much, but it did have its moments. I am still going to be playing the full game, of course, and I'm really hoping that we get some real improvement between... I know they're not going to be able to fix like everything or probably even anything in a month, but I just hope that we get with this game, improvement post-launch. Every little thing that they could possibly do, might end up adding up to a lot of different things, and we might end up with a game that's a lot more fun to play than the beta was. Who knows? Oh, and one more thing, just quickly. I'm not going to be including bugs in this list, because I figure bugs are things that are, obviously unintended and hopefully will be fixed come full release anyway. So things like the ADS glitch, where when you ADS'd you'd be put to 60 Hz or 60 FPS or whatever. It wasn't reading as 60 FPS, but that was it also was reading like fake ping numbers as well. So things like the ping numbers being bugged, the FPS or refresh rate issue that happens when you ADS, that sort of stuff. I'm not going to be including those because I figure, those are the sorts of things we expect or hope get fixed regardless. So just to clarify that. So first and foremost, connections. Now I know I'm not the only one who's been complaining about this, because I've seen it complained about by pretty much everyone, and I really think it's probably the most common complaint I've heard about the beta, which is why I put it first up. The connections in the beta were really inconsistent, and with the ping numbers being bugged, for me it would read out usually like either like 15 or 5, 4, whatever ping, and apparently that was just totally fake. I don't ping... I think the closest servers that they ever have in Call of Duty to me are in Oregon, and I don't live in Oregon, so I don't ping 4 to Oregon servers. I wish I did. That would make my my games a lot easier, I think, but I don't. So pretty much everyone was getting the same experience. Everyone's pings were reporting as super low. Even people who get really high ping normally. I have some friends who live in Western Australia who pings were reporting as like 10 and stuff like that, and there are no servers in in Western Australia. They've never had servers in WA, and I assume they never will, and just not enough people live there. All the AU servers are on the East Coast. They're pretty much always only in Sydney. They sometimes have some in Adelaide, but Adelaide is a very long way from Western Australia, and it is most certainly not a place they're going to ping 10 to, so the ping numbers were definitely bugged 100%, and between that and the inconsistent connections, it was really, really hard to tell at the start of the game what your actual connection was going to be like. So with that, it felt a little bit to me like the start of Advanced Warfare, where in Advanced Warfare they started off with no dedicated servers, and the ping numbers, or there weren't any ping numbers in that game, it was ping bars, but they were glitched to where they would just show a 4 bar for everyone. Even I could be on like a European host on 400 ping and it would still show a 4 bar, which was obviously, wrong. But it made it really confusing in that game, and it makes just as confusing in this one, where your ping's reporting is low, but everything feels laggy. Everyone melts you. It feels like it feels like you're about an entire second behind the action. You point at people, start shooting, you get nothing, and you die instantly, and on their screen you've been standing there like a moron, and you didn't even fire your gun on their screen. That sort of stuff happened a lot in the beta. I believe people with, net doomers and stuff were finding that they were, connecting to like all sorts of wonky places. You got, US players connecting to Europe and Asia, you got Europeans connecting to US and stuff like that, so hopefully they fix that up. I don't know what exactly causes those issues. As far as I could tell, the game was played entirely on dedicated servers and no peer-to-peer stuff was going on, because I didn't see a single host migration, which is really good with Infinity Ward's track record of having peer-to-peer crap as their go-to. But yeah, I would really like to see the connections fixed. Next up is the audio. I don't know about anyone else, but for me, the audio in this game was absolutely munted. I don't even know how to describe how bad it is. It's some of the worst sound design I've heard in a game, and it's not because the sounds themselves were bad. It's more like the mixing and the directional audio was horrendous. So like the DOM flag capture noise was way too loud. Helicopters and jets and stuff were way too loud, and yes, I do know that helicopters and jets are very loud things in real life, but I would rather be able to hear anything, including my own thoughts and my own voice, when I'm playing a game and there's a helicopter on the same map as me. It was actually so loud, a lot of the sounds, that I had to turn my master volume down just because it was actually giving me a headache listening to it. And in this game, sound's really important. You need to be able to hear footsteps, so turning footstep sounds down, because that's the only way you can turn these other sounds down, was really putting myself at a big disadvantage, but I had to do it because, well, I didn't want to go deaf. I didn't want to get a headache, so, I really hope they fix that sort of stuff. There's also a real issue with the directional audio. I don't know what it is, but it was like I had my headphone. If you can imagine having your headphones on backwards, things that were on my right sounded like they were coming from my left. Things that were on my left sounded like coming from my right. Things that were in front of me sounded like they were coming from behind me, etc. So the audio design really needs some work. I don't know how it's so wonky right now, but it is, and I'd really like to see it fixed come full release. Next up, a kind of similar complaint is actually the lighting, and this is a really common one I've been seeing as well. I don't know about you guys, I do know about some other people, and most of the people I've played with, pretty much everyone I've played with and talked to, say that it was really hard to see people in this game. I know that's usually a complaint with Call of Duty, especially when it first comes out and you're not used to what the character models look like, but this feels really egregious to me. There are places in the game that they're just so dark, and the lighting engine that they're using this time just seems so much more extreme with its vagaries of light and dark. There's also a problem where when you're outside looking in or inside looking out, and there's a difference between the lighting levels of inside and out, the game tries to simulate that sort of look that human eyes do, where they adjust to light, where it's, if you're coming from a dark place into a light place, then it's kind of blinding when you step out into the light, and when you're going into a dark place from a light place, you can't see shit, right? That sort of stuff is cool and all, and is very impressive technically, and I'm sure it's not easy to code for and all this sort of stuff, but it has absolutely no place being in a PvP scenario, and especially not in a Call of Duty game, and especially not in a Call of Duty game that's already too slow and campy. So I really hope they either tone down or cut that stuff out entirely. I guess it's probably wishful thinking to think they might cut out a feature like that entirely, but if they could tone it down at least, that would go a long way to helping with the visibility issue. But I think they can really do a lot to improve visibility issues in general, especially with the like player models. Player models, I feel, really don't pop out of the environment enough. Black Ops 4 actually did a great job of making it so that you always knew who was shooting at you and where they were shooting at you from. And I know that's not really what they're going for this time. They're not going for as much of the sort of real gameplay oriented stuff, but I really feel like this lighting comes too much at the expense of gameplay. There's a middle ground to be had there, and I think that they can do better for that on the full release. I hope they do. Coming up next is the matchmaking, and the matchmaking, this one, it really baffles me, and I don't know if they're going to be able to fix it or not. A lot of people have been complaining about skill-based matchmaking in the game, and while there hasn't been any definitive proof of it yet, I have to say from my experience, if there turned out to not be skill-based matchmaking, I'd be more surprised at this point than if it turned out that there was. So basically my experience was my first few games were real easy, even though I had no idea what I was doing. As soon as I started doing well, a few games in a row, my next however many, basically for the rest of the beta, I rarely played against a bad player, and I'm not talking about people who are just decent or whatever. The vast majority of my lobbies had multiple people on either team who were genuinely, to me, or to my eyes at least, seemed like really good players. And I know, yes, it's a beta and everyone is TTV, by the way, and super sweaty looking for content and stuff, but you'd have to think there'd be at least some total bums. And, while you do occasionally run into the person, someone who mucks up in a gunfight, it genuinely seemed like the vast majority of people I played against could aim and, did the usual good player stuff. They pre-aimed a lot, especially in this game. A lot of them did, sit in corners and camp head glitches and stuff like that, but just looking at everyone's aim, even, most people in this game had really good aim, and it wasn't just the controller aim bloaters. There were times when I turned off the crossplay, and it was, I was playing against lobbies filled with keyboard and mouse users who were, the vast majority of were really, really good. So, I really hope that there's no skill-based matchmaking and it's all big coincidence, and that there especially isn't in the full release. I don't want to be, spreading misinformation, so please don't take my own experience and my anecdote as proof that there's skill-based matchmaking, because it isn't anything of the sort. It's just me hoping that the skill-based matchmaking wasn't there, won't be there, because it's a bad idea. But that's not really the matchmaking problem I was talking about. My problem with the matchmaking in MW is that games took a long time to backfill. If anyone left the lobby, you were usually left with multiple empty spots for a really long time. And I really don't see a reason for that, because there were plenty of people playing the beta. So, I understand that they perceive lots of complaints about backfilling. People don't like joining into games in progress, especially if they join on a losing team. I understand that. But you know what else people don't like? Sitting in a 3v6 game for 10 minutes and you can't leave because you lose anyway. You lose either way if you're on the losing team. But it's boring to sit in a 3v6 or a 4v2 or whatever when you want to, whatever example you want to give. And I think it's far preferable to have some people join in to a game in progress that lasts 60 seconds and then the game's over and they can play another one, rather than have people sitting around for 10 minutes in a game that's, 3v1 or whatever. So I hope they fix that. I hope they fix the issue where people really don't tend to spawn in quickly, or join in quickly rather, when games empty out a little bit. But other than that, the matchmaking, I think, it seemed okay. The crossplay seemed to work just fine, so that's about all for the matchmaking. Next up is sprint out and pull up times. I know a fair few people who are complaining about this, But basically, you die really fast in this game. I don't know whether the TTK will feel better when the connections feel better, if they ever do, but you do die really, really fast in this game, and the pull-up times and sprint-out times just aren't fast enough to keep up with it. It makes people play super campy, which they're already doing anyway because of how loud the footsteps are, and how there's no option for dead silence as a perk, and how there's no people showing up on their mini-map. So I really think that pull-up and sprint-out times need to be buffed by quite a lot. You know, one of the things that kept Black Ops 2's pace up nice and high was the fact that they had fast pull-up times and sprint-out times in general already, and dexterity was a perk that a lot of people ran, and especially if you liked rushing, dexterity was a godsend because it really gave you that, you know, getting caught on the sprint. It was, you know, you still wanted to avoid it very much so, but it wasn't something that was 100% guaranteed death every time the way it is in MW. Number 6, we've got doors, and I know that the Infinity Ward team seemed pretty hyped up about these because I have watched some of their interviews and stuff. So I think any chance of them being removed entirely is just not going to happen. But the way the doors were done in MW Beta was horrible. I think they've said that they were bugged and weren't supposed to act that way, but I'm not sure about that. Basically, the doors in MW, they're too loud, they're way too loud, and they're way too sensitive, right? I don't know, I'm sure it was the same for everyone else, but every time I so much as tapped the sprint button, if I was within a 5-mile radius of a door, it flung open or flung the other way and made a huge noise. And even without touching it, even if you just sprint through a door that's already open, it will close as you go past it on the way out, right? And or not close so much as fling the other way and make a huge noise. And a few times this happened to me. I'd sprint, you know, nowhere. I was actually very, very far away from a door. I'd kind of just tap the sprint button. It'd fling open with a massive bang. I'd spin around because I thought someone else had opened it and was coming in the room after me, only for there to be no one there, and then I'd get shot in the back. Really annoying. Fix them or or whatever. I really hope they also tone down the sound that they make because they're way too loud. They're also quite unresponsive, and a few times I went to pick up a weapon off the floor, and the game interpreted that as me wanting to open the door instead, and it meant that I couldn't pick up the weapon because it would just continually try to open and close the door instead of picking up the weapon, which was really frustrating. So I hope they sort that stuff out too. Now, this is one I haven't seen anyone else really complain about too much, at least not on YouTube yet. Hipfire. It's incredibly strong in this game, and I think it's too strong. For a game that's already, you know, the TTK is really fast, the hipfire, I think, shouldn't be so generous. It's really tight no matter what gun you're using, pretty much, and it just results in a whole lot of hipfire insta-kills that happen before someone's even ADS'd. I'm sure you're familiar with the kill cam where you're dead long before they've finished ADSing in because every single bullet of their hipfire has hit you across the map. I think they can really do a lot to avoid that in the future, and I would really hope that they tone it down for the full release. I know that kind of goes against the sprint out things, and it makes you think that, you know, maybe people will just pull their sights up a lot and stuff like that, but if they fix the other stuff like sprint out times, I feel like this won't be as much of an issue. Now, here's another one I really haven't seen too much at all, actually, and that is the location modifiers. I know that some people are probably really excited about location modifiers in this COD, and I am definitely not amongst them after experiencing it. Basically, I think that, you know, chest damage multipliers on regular guns and headshot multipliers and arm shot multipliers and stuff like that, limb damage and all this, I really feel like it just, in Call of Duty, it just makes the gunfights super inconsistent and frustrating, and, you know, it means that when someone just accidentally taps you in the head while they're hipfiring in with their gun, it's impossible for you to win that gunfight. You know, you can talk about shoot first, die first. This is going to be the biggest COD for shoot first, die first if they keep these extreme modifiers, because there have been times where, you know, I've seen a person head glitching across the map, like a really, really long way away, and I shot at him like 5 times with an MP5, right? And he's died in like 3 hits. across the entire goddamn map, and that's with a sub. So it's just because, you know, one or two of my bullets have hit him in the head, and yeah, in real life, if you hit someone in the head, they're probably going to die faster than if you hit them in the body, but this isn't real life, it's a game, and I really don't feel like the modifiers are going to make gunfights fun and satisfying in the way that maybe Infinity Ward envisioned that they would. You know, nobody in COD has ever really aimed for the head too much, mostly because of the view kick in COD, making it so that you pretty much always get flinched above the head during a gunfight anyway. But I really just feel like the location modifiers are too extreme. They make the gunfights way too inconsistent. Sometimes your gun will be, you know, like an 8-hit kill, and sometimes it'll be a 2-hit kill. That sort of inconsistency is really frustrating and is just going to make people annoyed. Moving on, the explosives in the game right now are way too strong. The biggest culprit obviously is Claymores, but I'm not even going to direct most of my ire at that. I really feel like they need to tone down the explosives in general, or make flak jacket equivalent stronger, or both. Preferably both, because you really want to give some incentive to using flak jacket. It really should be sort of, you're kind of invincible against explosives, especially given that there's only 3 perks in this game. If you're going to have a perk, it really needs to hold its own against the other perks. And the explosives in general, I feel like they're just too easy to use, too easy to kill people with. Claymores obviously stand out as being the most obnoxious, and honestly, I used them for a bit in the beta, and they are ridiculous. I don't know why they decided to make them go off instantly. It used to be that, you know, in other CODs you could bait Claymores. You know, you see one on a staircase, you trip it and you walk backwards, it misses you. In this COD, nope. You trip it, it instantly blows up and you're dead, right? So you can't bait them. A lot of the time they just cut off your route entirely. It's like if you know a Claymore's there, you just can't go past it, right? Because you can't even bait it out. What are you supposed to do? So it's really horrible that they're that strong, but they are far from the only offender. Regular nades are very, very strong as well, and I feel like if you're going to have nades that are that strong, you really need to have a strong flak jacket to counter. And last but not least, the tacticals. I know that a lot of people ran Stim in the beta, and I know I enjoyed running Stim as well because it was pretty cool. It was nice to be able to heal on demand, especially given the long heal times in MW. But the tacticals, like stuns and flashes, are incredibly strong, and I really feel like more than nerfing them, they need to buff the tac mask equivalent. Again, tac mask just doesn't feel like it does enough. I forget what it was called, battle hardened or something. It's supposed to help against stuns and flashes, and while it does do that, getting hit by a stun or flash was often guaranteed death anyway, which, you know, kind of makes you just not even want to bother with the tac mask, because if you're going to die anyway, you might as well just take something more useful. I really feel like with everyone having access to a tactical, you really need a strong tac mask to counter if if you, the player, wants that sort of death to not be a thing, right? So, I'd really like to see a stronger tac mask as well as a stronger flak jacket, or weaker tacticals and weaker explosives, preferably both, because I'm not a big fan of dying or getting kills with explosives or tacticals. I've always felt that they were pretty cheesy, no matter what their form, and I say that as someone who used a hell of a lot of C4 in Black Ops 2, I'll tell you that. That's it for this, guys. Let me know what you think of the MW beta and what you think needs to change before release or after release. I hope you've enjoyed watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Till next time, peace out, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. No, there's too many of them. I got a cruise missile away. Fucking hell. Oh, get him, teammate.
Get all that right quick. We're winning this fight.
This guy's actually hilarious. That's less hilarious. I guess ye olde flak jacket isn't quite up to par in this game. Man, I never knew console players were so talkative.
That shit was bad.
Yeah, it did, I mean. 2 frags.
Get ready to move out. Enemy UAV overhead.
So it's like World War II flak jacket, I guess, where it's like,
Fuck is this one?
you know,
UAV
give you.
overhead. Hey, this one's all the way up here on the left. The left corner of the field. On my way to us. This is the new HQ.
Alright, can we make it across here? Probably not.
Coming, take cover.
Definitely not with that.
Buddy, we're dead. Yep. Fuck, man. Got us, bro. You don't think Oh my god, the orchestra. HQ active, move to the kill. Enemy on the HQ, get over there. There's 2 of you sitting in a fucking corner. Please shoot yourself.
Man, where's that guy?
Allied cruise missile away.
It's all bad.
Game if we don't get it.
And there's a dude in the corner. Only use me corner.
Map is a fucking deal. Enemy precision airstrike. Take cover.
I agree, teammate. The map sucks.
Enemy UAV over. Get in there, boys. Get in there, boys. Come on. That's it. HQ secure. We Enemy UAV overhead. Okay, get ready to move. Not true, there's one more.
It'd be so nice if they shot down UAVs ever. Just saying. I feel like all of the HQs have been insanely hard for me to get to.
And there's another one head glitch. Insane fucking. Yo, just head towards the headquarters. Right in their spawn, so I probably already got it. It's on top of their spawn. I'll luck you. Wow. Their spawn is right behind. We got a UAV on station. Go back there and flip spawn. Enemy UAV on Enemy on the HQ.
I don't understand how these people live through this many shots.
They're capturing the HQ. Go. 3 seconds, boys. 3 seconds left. They're capturing the HQ. Go. Enemy cruise missile.
Whoa! I hear an F maggot. Come on, bro.
Imagine camping as hard as Valid did.
This guy's distinctly unimpressed with the enemy team.
I need to hit up that. Somebody's a fucking PC player if I ever saw one. Holy shit.